So welcome back to the episode about cleaning my own aquarium. This would be part 7, and the big issue in part 7 is how effective has the algae scrubber been. We've just started here with some tests of nitrate and phosphate, and there's reagent number 1 for the nitrate. We're doing 3 tests here. Stir that just a little. Stir that just a little. There. Cap that. We've got samples over here for phosphate. I'm going to add 1 drop to each. Stir that just a smidgen. And 2 drops of reagent number 2. We'll stir that just a bit and come right back after the intro, and we should have some results of how effective the algae scrubber chemically has been on the reef tank. And welcome back to part 7 of cleaning my own aquarium. This will be the final part of this basically algae scrubber type episode. I've got some test samples here in front of me. This would be nitrate and phosphate. These would be the leading nutrients that would cause algae issues in the aquarium. Over here is the nitrate. And if I recall right, last time we had found that it had brought it down to 0, and in using this little graduated color scale here, I would have to say that there are 0 nitrates in the system. So in that sense, I'm quite pleased in the results that the algae scrubber has achieved. Over here is phosphate. I holding this kind of at an angle here, if I remember right, last time we tested we were about 1.5. Here would be 1.5, and that's a lot greener than I think our test sample is. So I'm guessing too much yellow. 0.5 parts per million of nitrate. So that's brought a whole 1 part per million down since last time we tested it. So again, from a water chemistry test kit perspective, the algae scrubber has been successful in bringing the nutrients down. Granted, this tank has taken, I believe it's now 10 months to achieve those levels, but it was a tank that was very abused and ignored when we started with, so it's been a much harder test. So again, from this point of view, I believe that the algae scrubber has provided a valid function. It's got a few issues that we've had to overcome, most of it being maintenance and the frequency of maintenance, but so far from a chemistry point of view, I'm very pleased with the results that the algae scrubber has achieved. Now, let's take a look inside the tank and see if visually it's achieved the results that we wanted. But I want to share with you the cleaning of the screen once again. Fairly simple process, but again, it's a weekly process. And there's still a goodly amount of algae that the screen is producing. It's just brown this time, namely because it's not as fertile as it was when we started. And you can see there's a goodly amount of algae that's collecting at the bottom of the scrubber that we need to clean out as well. But first, let's go ahead and clean the algae that's on the screen. Okay, so this time we're going to remove the screen from the spray rod. You can see there's a goodly amount of algae growing on that slot, but there's also now calcareous algae. I don't know if you can see that, the purple coralline algae, and that's really the more difficult and the disruptive algae as far as that rod's concerned. A good cleaning of the rod, and what happens with your tools when you use them for salt water? They get rusted.
And as I do my weekly scraping of algae off the screen, I'd like to respond to those who have suggested using a refugium. My first comment would be, I did not plan financially on replacing my existing filter system, hence the retrofit of the algae scrubber. My second comment would be, I doubt if a refugium would resolve a high nutrient situation such as what's in this tank. And lastly, my feelings in regards to a refugium is it's more of a passive means of filtration, whereas the algae scrubber is a more active or proactive method.
And there we are. Screen's ready to be put back in place. Some might argue that you could get that screen cleaner. I'm sure you could.
The advantage to cleaning the screen more aggressively is to extend the period of time before the screen needs to be cleaned again. In addition to cleaning the screen, I also need to clean the algae growth from within inside the scrubber, in particular the clear panels in front of the lights, but also to make it a point to clean the drain outlet so that it will allow the water to exit the unit and not overflow the unit.
And there you can see this cleaned screen inside the clean algae trough, and it drains out at one end. The algae growing on the screen is what's removing or soaking up nutrients out of the water.
So we've reached the point where it's now the visual inspection to determine if the algae scrubber has been successful or not. But before we do that, I just want to review briefly. The goal here was to add something or change something in the tank that would help me remove the nutrients, which ultimately would remove the algae from the tank, thus allowing me to not only keep more fish, but to feed those fish more than what I've been feeding in the tank. At this point, we've, from a chemistry point of view, confirmed that the nutrients in fact have decreased significantly as a result of the addition of the algae scrubber. Granted, it's not resolved the problem entirely. In fact, the tank was in pretty sad condition when we started. So what effects the algae scrubbers have done for us have only benefited us at this point. I will comment that the weekly attention is a little bit much, certainly more than I anticipated. At the same time, the length of time that it's taken to achieve this, but that's not the fault of the scrubber. That's the fault of the person who allowed the tank to get into that position to begin with. So with that in mind, I'd like to show you the inside of the tank. There are some interesting developments. There are some things that have grown in the tank. There are a few things that we've lost in the tank as well. But overall, I'm fairly satisfied with the results of the algae scrubber. So much so, as a matter of fact, that I'm actually going to use this episode to springboard in two different directions. One of which is a much smaller, more compact algae scrubber. Let's refer to it as the L2 from Turbo Aquatics. The other one is an idea on my own part, pretty much as the result of what I've learned or experienced with this particular algae scrubber. It would only be fair at this point to also make a comment that the Santa Monica algae brand scrubber, which is what we've been using, has also developed another type of scrubber, a rather unique version, very small, very compact, very inexpensive, and it's also a retrofit version as well that actually fits down in the sump. You can explore that at santa-monica.cc and see what he has to offer there. In the meantime, let me show you not only some views of inside the tank, but I also want to show you these two new products.
When in Los Angeles, make it a point to stop in Long Beach, California at Age of Aquariums, 2642 Cherry Avenue, just off the 405 freeway near Signal Hill. At Age of Aquariums, their knowledgeable staff showcases designer aquariums featuring colorful corals and exotic fish, a spectacular 4-sided 500-gallon living coral reef, along with a wide selection of coral frags and a large selection of saltwater fish, the cute, the graceful, and the not-so-cute. Age of Aquariums also carries a selection of popular freshwater fish for the beginning hobbyist. Along with a full line of aquarium supplies and supplements, Age of Aquariums quarantines and medicates all their new fish and proudly provides LA and Orange County's largest aquarium maintenance service. Age of Aquarium is located at 2642 Cherry Avenue, just off the 405 freeway near Signal Hill. Open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays. For more information, dial 562-438-6252 or visit ageofaquariums.biz. Tropical Fish Hobbyist Magazine has been the authoritative source for aquarium keepers since the first legendary issue rolled off the presses in 1952. With informative articles month after month about the fascinating world of freshwater aquariums, saltwater setups, paludariums, ponds, and more, illustrated in crisp detail by the world's top aquatic photographers. TFH covers it all. And now, with subscriptions starting at $13.95 and a mobile digital edition you can take with you wherever you go, TFH is your ultimate resource for all things aquatic. And here are some exciting previews of future episodes. This future episode shows how the recently set up 400-gallon Bowfront tank is doing. We made it through the cycles, including a diatom bloom, and have now progressed to adding schools of butterfly fish. A couple of weeks ago, I came across a shipment of golden eels just in from Brazil. I picked up one for the 400-gallon Bowfront aquarium. She may look like a snake, but it's pretty hard to hide in a big tank when you're banana yellow. And in this episode, we built our own version of an algae scrubber. Only it's the entire filter by itself. We have a possible 90-gallon reef tank sale in the works. And our friend Rick is talking about setting up his 180-gallon reef tank again. Be sure to come on back again for these and other exciting opportunities with more of LA Fish Guys.
So you can see here, at first glance, I think it's pretty impressive, the decrease in the algae growth in the tank. But at a closer glance, there's still little patches of it here and there. In fact, this happens to be one of the most tenacious areas where that hair algae seem to flourish. I'm not sure why in this rear corner, but there's a few other places. But overall, I'm pleased with how effective the scrubber has removed the algae from the system, certainly decreased the nutrients, and visually decreased the amount of algae growth as well. I certainly don't think that its job is over with, and I expect it to have to remain on the system, otherwise some of those algae issues may come back. But for now, I think it's done a fairly good job. In regards to what we set out to accomplish, I think in most cases we did achieve our goals. We did try to put a more energy efficient or less heat influencing pump on the tank, but it ended up being way too noisy. So we ended up actually putting the same pump back on the system that we started off with, so we still got a temperature issue. We added the algae scrubber. We officially confirmed that it in fact has now removed an abundance of nutrients from the system, both from a test kit standpoint as well as from a visual standpoint. There's a noticeable decrease in the algae growth that was in the system. We began to upgrade or improve our lighting system by adding LED strip lights, and so far they seem to have worked out well. I'm still not 100% convinced that they could be the sole source of lighting within the system, but then again, that's the whole point of placing them on this tank, is for me to learn and ultimately to pass that along to future customers. The tank or the coral inhabitants seem to have done well. There were a number of corals that came from the 400-gallon, or what at the time was a 300-gallon reef tank. It became the 400-gallon bow front, this being one of them. I was going to try to look up and see if I could figure out the name of it, but I haven't sat down and taken that time yet. The rose anemones are doing well. I'm pleased with it. So overall, I think the algae scrubber is a good thing, and I'm going to plan on incorporating it into some other systems. I'm still also going to explore other possibilities, but so far I'm real pleased with the results that we've received so far.
So feeling pretty confident with the algae scrubber concept, I'm about to embark on two different directions. Both of these directions will be a new entire episode for you to view. One of them will feature this L2 algae scrubber by Turbo Aquatics. This is a real miniaturized version of the Santa Monica. The big difference here is this one doesn't use fluorescent bulbs. It uses very intense LED lights that are curtailed or designed in spectrum, specifically blue and red, to the algae growth. So it's a real supercharged version. It does have these radiator or heat sinks on the backside, which look a little menacing or overwhelming, so I'll be curious to see how that works out as far as heat is concerned. This too has a screen on a spray rod inside of it. It being a small unit, we're going to try to retrofit this onto another existing old reef tank, now turned fish tank, that unlike my own tank doesn't have a hair algae problem, just has a regular algae growth problem. The other direction that we're going to go is with this large algae scrubber filter. I designed this myself. And as I said, this being the entire filter, this would be the sump and the algae scrubber combined. Water would end at this end where it would be diffused of its air bubbles. It in turn would spill over into a channel here through the center that has a tray in it. That tray has an algae screen hanging from it.
the water passing down over the screen would rain down into the bottom of the filter and move to the right over here where it would pass through a post-filter sponge to trap any loose algae growth and would fill up at this end. Your water pump, whether it be submersible or external, would draw from this end. This unit, like an algae scrubber, would have light hoods placed inside the filter on either side of that algae screen. You can see here the lights are of that blue and purple spectrum, which would encourage algae growth. As I said, this is on another episode which I hope to obtain the sale on a 150, 120 gallon reef tank. We're still trying to define whether it's going to be 30 inches tall or 36 inches tall. This would be the filter that we would put on that living reef tank. And of course, the biggest advantage would be utilizing the algae scrubber concept. Again, you would be growing algae on this screen that would be illuminated by LED lights on either side of it. All of this is contained within inside a single filter. So that's the two new products and the two new directions as far as videos are concerned that will be going here in the near future. Thanks for hanging in there for all 7 parts. Hopefully you learned something, because I did, and I always do. So with that in mind, we'll see you in the next episode, and always keep moving forward.